Let me close everything, by the way. Capsule can play well also on Google GKE, the Kubernetes engine offered by Google Cloud Platform. There are some prerequisites that you have to put in place because you need to create a cluster with the enabled Google groups for RBAC. It's a feature. This is the link that you can try to follow to set up your cluster. And I would like to thank also Giorgio Crivellari from Google Italy that he helped me to debug this because I wasn't able to understand how it was working. So keep in mind that when you create that cluster, you have to specify, how to say that, a group that is a security group that is used to create a boundary, a connection between your groups that are going to be the tenant owners with the Google group one. It's a bit a mess, so I would like just to show you from the dashboard. So this is the cluster that we just created on GKE for the sake of timing, that's being created in advance. And then, as you can see here, we got Alice. So Alice is a user, our common user that we're using through all the demos, and she's able to connect to the cluster and to create namespaces for their tenant. So Alice, as you can see here, got a role, and this role is the Capsule get cluster. And this role is required because we need to get the cluster in order to get the kubeconfig. It's absolutely mandatory. And beside also the cluster configuration, I would like to just show you that we got the integration with the Google groups for RBAC. So the security group is this one. You have to create that in advance. And with that said, you have to create the tenant groups and add them to the GKE security group. You can try to follow the documentation, or otherwise you can try to reach out on the Kubernetes Slack workspace, #capsule, and from that we can try to help you. So the cluster has been created and we have to install Capsule on top of that. So I'm going to create the kubeconfig. And now I have to perform the authentication as cluster administrator. So I'm connecting as Dario. I'm authenticated. And in fact, what I can do now is to get the credentials. So the command is gcloud container clusters get credentials capsule in the zone Europe Central 2A in the project project CLASTIX. In fact, now if I issue kubectl get namespace, I'm the cluster administrator. I can do whatever I want. So what I have to do now, I have to install Capsule. I'm installing Capsule using HELM, but pay attention because right now we have to specify the user group. So what I'm going to issue is HELM Upgrade install Capsule CLASTIX Capsule in the namespace Capsule system, create namespace, and I'm going to set an option saying in the manager options, the Capsule user groups, the first entry must be capsule@clastix.io. And now we are getting Capsule installed in our GKE cluster. Just a few seconds for the certificates required for the dynamic admission controllers and the installation of the CRD. Oh, we're missing resources. My bad. So, Capsule system, I'm going to change the limits because I'm using small nodes. And now we have to wait again. Yeah, here it is. That's great. The CRD has been installed. As you can see here, we got obviously the GKE ones, and we are getting also the tenant one. This one, tenant capsule. So now what we have to do is to perform the authentication for Alice. So what I have to issue is gcloud auth login, because right now I have to authenticate myself as Alice of Capsule. I'm allowing that. And now, since I'm authenticated, I can create a file named GKE Alice, exporting that to GKE Alice. And now I just need to issue again. Let me check if we got the history. Yeah, gcloud container clusters get credentials capsule zone Europe Central 2A project CLASTIX. It's my cluster. So we got our kubeconfig, and now if I try to issue kubectl get namespace, I should get an error. Obviously, because Alice at CLASTIX.io doesn't have any permission to list the namespaces. This is a limited user because we would like to map the permissions of the Kubernetes cluster, not with the RBAC offered by Google Cloud, but rather with the RBAC controlled by Capsule. So Alice is just a user with no permissions. The single permission is the retrieval, the describe of the cluster that is required to generate the kubeconfig. So since Alice is part of the group Capsule at CLASTIX.io, she can create namespace, but obviously cannot because we are missing the tenant. So what we have to do is to issue the creation of a tenant as a cluster administrator, kubectl -f API version capsule.clastix.io v1 beta 1 kind tenant metadata name solar specification the owners. It's a user with the name Alice at clastix.io. So the tenant has been created. I can watch the events, and now as Alice, I can create again my namespace. And the namespace is going to be bounded to the tenant. So in the end, we are ending up with a Kubernetes cluster. We don't need to delegate all the RBAC to Google Cloud that is not aware of the tenant concept. We can take full advantage of Capsule on GKE using a poor Kubernetes experience. So no lock-in at all, because it works on your local machine, it works on cloud, it works everywhere. And with that said, finally, we finished this demo, and I hope you really enjoy, and we can all open the QA session. And I would like to get a coffee, but